There are some love stories that begin with a conversation. Ours began with a burned-out light bulb, a porch light, on a farmhouse a quarter-mile down a dirt road from my own. I had driven past it every morning and every evening for 8 months, and every night for those 8 months, the porch light had been dark. Not on, not off, broken. And on the last Wednesday of August, at 7:45 in the evening, on my way home from the hardware store, with a bag of miscellaneous supplies and an unopened bottle of Gatorade in my truck, I made a decision I could not explain then and cannot fully explain now. I turned into her driveway. I did not knock. I did not ring the bell. I did not say a single word to a single person. I walked up to her porch with a screwdriver from my truck and a fresh bulb from my hardware bag, and I fixed the porch light of a woman I had never met, and I got back in my truck, and I drove home to my own farmhouse, a quarter-mile up the road. 12 hours later, at 7 in the morning, when I walked out my front door to walk my dog, there was a small thermos of coffee on my porch steps. Underneath the thermos was a folded piece of paper. 3 lines, handwritten, blue pen. "Thank you for the light. I don't know how you knew. I have been alone at the end of this road for a very long time, and nobody has ever done a kind thing without wanting something in return. So I made coffee. Cream, no sugar, I guessed. Please keep the thermos. Ellery, at the farmhouse with the fixed porch light." I read that note 8 times, standing on my porch in bare feet with my dog watching me. Then I sat down on the top step and I read it 3 more times. That was the beginning. My name is Bennett Marsh. I'm 37 years old, and I have been a widower for 4 years and 2 months. I want to get that out of the way early, because the rest of this story does not make sense unless you understand that when I walked up my neighbor's dirt driveway on a Wednesday evening in August with a light bulb in my hand, I was not a man looking for a wife. I was not a man looking for a girlfriend. I was not a man looking for anything at all. I was a man who had been alone for 4 years and 2 months in a small rented farmhouse on a dirt road called Ridge Creek Road, 12 miles outside a town called Chessington in the mountains of western North Carolina, and I had, by then, mostly made peace with being alone. My wife's name was Anna. Anna was a nurse. Anna died 4 years ago of complications from a surgery that was supposed to be routine. She was 33 years old. We had been married 6 years. We had 1 dog together, a black and tan hound named Ezra, who is asleep on my porch right now as I tell you this. Ezra was Anna's dog before he was mine. Anna picked him out from a rescue in 2019. Anna named him. Anna trained him. When Anna died in the summer of 2021, Ezra sat on the foot of our bed for 2 weeks refusing to eat, and I lay in the bed next to him doing the same thing, and eventually I made both of us get up, because one of us had to. I moved to Ridge Creek Road 3 years ago. I could not stay in the house Anna and I had lived in. Too many rooms with too much of her. So I sold that house, and I rented a small farmhouse in the mountains for less than half of what my mortgage had been. I work remotely. I do software architecture for a mid-sized firm out of Charlotte, which means I sit at a desk in the front room of the farmhouse for 8 hours a day and write code and go to Zoom meetings and mostly do not speak to another human being from Monday morning to Friday afternoon. On weekends, I take Ezra on long walks. I fix things around the house, the fence, the barn, the well cover. I read a lot of books my sister sends me from a bookshop in Charleston. I go to bed at 9. I get up at 5. That has been my life for 3 years, and most days I have been fine with it. The neighbor I want to tell you about, the woman who left the coffee on my porch, is Ellery Vance. Ellery is 34 years old. She has a son. His name is Cal. He is 6. Ellery's farmhouse is a quarter-mile down Ridge Creek Road from mine. It is smaller than mine, older. A white 2-story with a red tin roof and a wraparound porch and a large front yard that slopes gently down toward the creek that gives the road its name. There is a small barn out back, 2 goats, a pen with 3 chickens, a rusted old pickup that had not been driven in the 8 months I had been noticing it. I did not know any of these details when I walked up her driveway with the light bulb. I only knew what I had seen from my truck window driving past every morning and every evening, which was, mostly, this. The porch light had been broken for 8 months. And the woman who lived there kept the house very neat, and she seemed to be alone with the boy most of the time. And there was no husband's truck in the driveway, and I had never once seen an adult man on her porch, and something about the specific loneliness of a broken porch light on a house that was otherwise well kept had gotten into my head. I had asked around at the hardware store once, just once. I had described the farmhouse. The old man behind the counter had said, "Oh, that's Ellery Vance's place. Nice woman. Husband died in Afghanistan 4 years back. Left her with the boy. She keeps to herself." 4 years. Same as me. Same as me. I did not knock on her door that first Wednesday because I did not want to introduce myself. I did not want to make it a thing. I did not want her to feel like she owed me anything. I wanted to fix a broken thing quietly and drive home and let her wake up the next morning to a porch light that worked, and never think about who had done it. That was the whole plan. The plan lasted about 12 hours. Because when I walked out my front door at 7 the next morning, with Ezra pushing past me toward his patch of grass, I saw the thermos on my porch steps, and I understood, in the small, quiet part of me that had been quiet for 4 years, that something had just started that I did not know what to do with. I read her note 8 times. Then I sat down on the top step and I read it 3 more times. Then I picked up the thermos and I brought it inside and I poured myself a cup of the coffee she had made. It was strong. Cream, no sugar, exactly like she had guessed. I sat at my kitchen table with the note in front of me and I drank her coffee slowly, and I did not do anything else for the next 20 minutes. I want to describe the way that note landed on me, because it is the most important thing I have to tell you about this whole story. I had not received a piece of mail from another human being that was not junk or business in 4 years. I had not been thanked in writing for anything since Anna's funeral, when I had gotten dozens of cards from people I barely knew, who wrote sympathetic things about a woman they had barely known. I had not. Ellery Vance, my neighbor down the dirt road, could not have known this. I had not been on the receiving end of an unprompted kindness from a woman in longer than I could remember. That is what the note did to me. It was not romantic. She had not written anything romantic. She had written 7 sentences in a steady, careful hand, and she had signed it Ellery, at the farmhouse with the fixed porch light, and something about the way she had signed it, like she was introducing herself and orienting me at the same time, made me sit at my kitchen table on a Thursday morning in August and understand that I had been asleep for 4 years and something was waking me up. I did not want anything from her. I want to be clear about that. I wanted to write her back. I did. That afternoon, Bishop's rescue papers were still in an envelope in my desk drawer, and I took a small piece of that envelope stationery, good ivory paper, and I sat down and I wrote her a note. I wrote, "Ellery, you are welcome. I have driven past your farmhouse every morning and every evening for 8 months, and I noticed the porch light was out, and it was bothering me on your behalf. I did not want to introduce myself and make it a thing. I wanted the light to just work. Thank you for the coffee. It was good. I kept the thermos as you asked. I am returning it now with a small bag of coffee beans from a roaster in Asheville that I like. If you ever have another light out, or a leaky faucet, or a stuck window, you can leave a note under my doormat and I will come by when you are not home and fix it. That way we do not have to do the awkward hello thing. Bennett, at the farmhouse a quarter mile up. I read it 3 times. I almost threw it away. It felt I could not decide what it felt too much of. Too formal? Too casual? Too much? Too little? I put it in an envelope. I walked down Ridge Creek Road with Ezra on his leash. It was maybe 5 in the afternoon. Blue sky. The kind of August afternoon in the North Carolina mountains that smells like warm pine needles and hay. I could see her house from the road. Her small red pickup was in the driveway. I did not go up the driveway. I walked up to her mailbox at the end of it, a black tin flag up and down mailbox on a wooden post, and I opened it, and I set my note and the small bag of coffee beans inside. I did not raise the flag. I closed the mailbox. I turned around and I walked home. I did not hear from her for 4 days. That was fine. That was the deal. I had told her the point of the note under the doormat was that we did not have to do the awkward hello thing. But at 7 in the morning on Monday, when I walked out to Ezra's patch of grass, there was a second thermos on my porch step and a second folded note. This one said, "Bennett, the coffee beans you sent are exceptional. Cal, my son, asked me who they were from. I told him they were from a nice man down the road who fixed our porch light. Cal said we should invite you for dinner sometime. I told Cal that adults are complicated and dinner is a big word, and maybe we should start with more coffee. So this is more coffee. If you would like to keep the note under the doormat system going, that is also fine. I am not in a hurry. I am not in a hurry about anything in this life. That has been my hard-won lesson. P.S. Cal wants you to know he saw you walking your dog. He said, 'The dog looks like a nice dog.' That is the highest compliment Cal has ever given anyone. Please pass it along to the dog. Ellery." I read that note 14 times. I brought Ezra inside. I sat at my kitchen table with the note in front of me, and I felt something in my chest that I had not felt in 4 years. I did not know exactly what to call it. I just knew it was there. I want to tell you about the 6 weeks that followed. Because those 6 weeks were, when I look back on them now, the most careful courtship I have ever been part of in my life. There was no dialogue. There was no first date. There was no phone call. There was no walking up the driveway and knocking. There were only notes. I want to tell you about the notes. Week 1. Second note back from me. Ellery, thank you for the compliment about my dog. His name is Ezra. He is 7. He has agreed to accept the compliment on the condition that he be allowed to meet Cal's chickens someday, at a distance appropriate to a dog with a hound's imagination. In the meantime, if you have a jar you cannot open or a shelf that needs rehanging, the note under the doormat is open. I hope you and Cal have a good week. Bennett. Second note from her. Bennett. Cal accepts Ezra's terms. He would like Ezra to know that our chickens are named Dolores, Beatrice, and Rutherford. Rutherford is the rooster. Rutherford is a difficult personality. Please warn Ezra. I have no jars that need opening and no shelves that need hanging, but the kitchen door has a hinge that has been squeaking for 2 years, and every time I hear it, I want to scream. If you feel like fixing that at some point when I am not home, I would consider it a great kindness. My work schedule is Tuesday and Thursday, all day, at the clinic in Chessington. I am a veterinary technician. Also, I am going to stop putting my last name on the notes. If you have not looked it up yet, please do not. It is a bad name. I have been meaning to change it back for years. Ellery. I did not look it up. Third note from me, with a hinge kit. Ellery. I fixed the kitchen door hinge. I noticed while I was there that your back porch railing has a loose baluster on the third one from the right. I will bring a bolt for it next Thursday if you would like. I have also enclosed a small dog biscuit for Rutherford's opposition research. If Cal would like to meet Ezra formally, we could arrange a supervised summit at the mailbox on a Saturday morning. Ezra will be on his best behavior. He has been briefed. Bennett. Third note from her. Bennett. I am laughing at Rutherford's opposition research. I laughed for a full minute this morning when I found the note. Cal wants to know if the summit could involve donuts. He is a very negotiation-forward 6-year-old. I have said yes to donuts. Saturday 9 a.m. at the mailbox at the end of my driveway. Bring Ezra. Bring donuts if it is your turn. Come alone otherwise, I will bring Cal and coffee. Ellery. P.S. My last name is Vance. That is not the bad name. I will explain the bad name another time. Please do not worry about it. That Saturday morning at 9 a.m., I brought Ezra and 24 donuts to the mailbox at the end of Ridge Creek Road, and Ellery Vance and her 6-year-old son Cal walked down her driveway to meet us for the first time. Ellery was smaller than I had expected, 5'4" maybe. Dark blonde hair and a low braid over her shoulder, freckles across her nose, faded jeans, a soft blue sweater with the sleeves pushed up. She looked at me the way a person looks at another person when they have exchanged 8 handwritten notes over 3 weeks and have not yet spoken a word out loud. She said Bennett. I said Ellery. Cal, who was small and dark-haired and had one front tooth missing, said, "Is that Ezra?" I said, "That is Ezra." Cal walked slowly around Ezra, studying him. Ezra sat completely still. He is a very old-soul dog. He knew this was a summit. Cal said, "Ezra is a good dog." I said, "He is." Cal said, "Ezra can meet Rutherford at a distance." I said, "That's very generous of Ezra." Cal looked up at me for the first time. He said, "Mom said you fix things." I said, "I do." He said, "Do you fix people?" Ellery went very still next to me. I looked down at Cal. I said, "Cal, I don't know if I fix people, but I can try to help with a specific person if you have one in mind." Cal thought about it. He said, "My mom cries in the shower sometimes." Ellery closed her eyes. I said, "Cal, sometimes moms need to cry in the shower. Sometimes dads need to cry in the shower too. My wife died 4 years ago and I still cry in the shower some mornings. It doesn't mean anything is broken, it just means we loved somebody." Cal nodded slowly. He said, "Your wife died." I said, "Yes." Cal said, "My dad died." I said, "I know, I'm sorry." He said, "Was your wife nice?" I said, "She was the nicest person I have ever known." Cal said, "My dad was nice too." I said, "I bet he was." Cal held out his small hand, very seriously. He said, "I am Cal Vance. Nice to meet you, Mr. Ezra's dad." I shook his hand. I said, "I am Bennett Marsh." "Nice to meet you, Cal." Ellery had to turn away for a moment. She was pretending to look at the mailbox, but her shoulders were shaking, not sobbing, just moved. The way a person moves when their 6-year-old handles something better than any adult in the vicinity. We ate donuts on the shoulder of the road. Ezra allowed Cal to feed him one small piece of a donut. Ellery drank her coffee from her own thermos and did not look at me for the first 3 minutes. When she finally did, she said quietly, "Bennett, this was a good summit." I said, "Ellery, this was a good summit." We walked back down the driveways to our own farmhouses. I did not walk her home. That would have been too much. We split at the mailbox. At my mailbox, I found a 4th note. She must have put it there before Cal came down the driveway. It said, "Bennett, I want you to know something. Since my husband died, I have not let a man onto my property. Not a plumber, not the electrician, not the man who reads the meter. Not one. I have done everything myself for 4 years. The fence, the fireplace, the roof leak, the goats, the truck, the taxes, the tantrums, the everything. I have been the world's most tired one-woman operation. When my porch light burned out in December, I looked at it for 8 months, and I could not make myself climb a ladder to change it. I don't know why. I just could not. And then one morning, I woke up and the light was on, and there was no note, and no name, and no explanation, and I sat at my kitchen table with a thermos of coffee, and I understood that a man on a dirt road had done a small kind thing for me without wanting a single thing in return. And that is why I wrote the note. That is why we are here. I want you to know that I noticed. I want you to know it mattered. That's all. I read that note 6 times standing at my mailbox. Then I brought it inside and I put it in a small wooden box on my kitchen counter where I keep the things I do not want to lose. That was the 4th note. There were 17 more. I want to summarize the next month. Because we did not rush. That was our whole thing. Slow. Slow was our word. Slow was the note-based courtship. Slow was the 6-year-old boy and the widowed veterinary technician and the widowed software architect at opposite ends of a dirt road, exchanging small pieces of paper and building something so carefully that neither of us named it out loud for a very long time. September notes. About her goats. About my sister. About a book she had read and thought I would like. About a book I had read and thought she would like. She began leaving her Sunday morning notes without a thermos, just the paper. She said the note was more important than the coffee. I began fixing small things around her property on my Tuesdays and Thursdays when she was at work. The porch railing baluster, a drafty window seal, the screen door that would not close all the way. Each time I left a small pencil sketch of what I had fixed, so she would know when she came home. Each time she wrote me back with a note about the drawing. By late September, we were writing paragraph-long notes about our lives before, about Anna, about her husband. His name was Jesse. He had died in Afghanistan when Cal was 2. He had never really been Cal's father in the day-to-day way, and Ellery was still working through how to tell Cal the difficult version of that. About the loneliness of the last 4 years. About the loneliness before the 4 years, which had been a different kind of loneliness. We did not talk on the phone. We did not text. We did not email. That had become the deal, without either of us saying so. The notes were the whole medium. On the last day of September, a warm Friday afternoon, gold light through the trees, I found a note in my mailbox that was different. It said, "Bennett, Cal has asked me every day for 2 weeks if you and Ezra will come to dinner. I have told him every day that adults are complicated and that we have to move at the right pace. But I want to tell you the truth today. Cal asks because I ask. He is a proxy for the question I have been sitting on. Would you come to dinner, Sunday, 6 o'clock, my kitchen table? Ezra is invited. If this is too fast, please say so and we will continue with the notes. I am not in a hurry. I am not in a hurry about anything in this life. But I am not in a hurry to keep this going through paper either. If what we are actually building is a different thing. E. I read that note on my porch at sunset. I sat down on the top step. Ezra came and put his head on my knee. I said out loud, to Ezra, "Buddy, I think we are going to dinner on Sunday." Ezra sighed. I walked back down Ridge Creek Road that evening with a note of my own. I put it in her mailbox. My note said, Ellery, Sunday, 6 o'clock. Ezra and I will be there. Please tell Cal I am bringing my very best dog behavior and my very second best conversation. Also, please tell Cal that Ezra has agreed to formally meet Rutherford, but at a distance, no closer than the porch. Ezra has done his opposition research and feels confident. See you Sunday. B. I walked home in the September gold. Sunday came slowly. Sunday came fast. Sunday came exactly on time. I showered. I put on jeans and a clean shirt, a soft flannel my sister had sent me the previous Christmas that I had never worn. I brushed Ezra. I brought a bottle of wine, a red I had been saving from Anna and my anniversary trip to Charlottesville in 2020, and a small potted rosemary bush that I had rooted myself in the workshop from a cutting my sister had brought me in July. I walked down the road at 5:50. Ezra beside me. The sun low. The dust from the road pink in the light. Ellery was on her porch. She had changed. Soft green dress. Hair down. She had lit small candles on the porch railing. Cal came running out the front door. He said, "Mr. Ezra's dad." He hugged my leg. I said, "Cal, nice to see you." He said, "Mom made chicken." Ellery came down the porch steps. She said, "Bennett." I said, "Ellery." We looked at each other. She said, "Come inside." I came inside. Her kitchen was warm. Yellow walls, white cabinets, a butcher block table set for 3, real plates, cloth napkins, a small glass jar of wildflowers in the center. Ezra walked in like he had lived there. Cal followed him around like Ezra was a visiting dignitary. We ate roast chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans from her garden. Cal told me every detail of Rutherford's personality. Ellery told me the story of how she had bought the farmhouse, cash, 10 years ago, before Jesse deployed, and how Jesse had never really lived in it because he was always deployed. She told me she had come here to raise Cal because it was the only house she had ever felt was hers. I told her about Anna. I told her about the 4 years since. I told her about the software job and the sister in Charleston and the 7 years of Ezra. We did not touch that night. She had made that clear before I walked in the door. Cal was there. That was the whole reason we had not accelerated anything. Cal was 6 years old and Cal had lost his father, and Cal was a boy who was watching very carefully, and neither Ellery nor I were going to introduce him to physical affection between his mother and a new man before he was ready. Cal fell asleep on the living room floor around 8:30. Ezra beside him, head on Ezra's flank. Ellery and I sat on her porch swing after that, not touching, feet apart, talking in a low, quiet voice so we would not wake Cal through the open window. I said, "Ellery, I have a question." "Yes." "How long do you want to keep this slow?" She thought about it for a long moment. She said, "Bennett, I want to keep it slow until Cal is ready. Not until I am ready. Not until you are ready. Until Cal is ready to have a man in the house who is not his father. That is my one rule." I said, "Fair." She said, "That could be 6 months. That could be a year." I said, "Ellery, I have been alone for 4 years. 6 more months is nothing. A year is nothing. I have all the time in the world." She looked at me in the porch light. She said, "Bennett, you are a very steady man." I said, "Ellery, you are a very steady woman." She smiled. She said, "Then we can afford to be slow." At 9:30, I picked up Ezra, hugged Cal, who was half asleep, and murmured, "Goodbye, Mr. Ezra's dad," without opening his eyes, and Ellery walked me to her porch steps. At the porch steps, in the September night, she reached up and put her hand on the collar of my flannel shirt. She did not kiss me. Cal was inside. She had been clear about the rule, but she held her hand there for maybe 5 seconds. She said, "Bennett, thank you for tonight." I said, "Thank you for having me." I walked home in the moonlight, Ezra beside me, dust on the road. At my mailbox, at 9:45 at night, there was already a note. She must have put it there before I arrived. It said, "Bennett, in case tonight went well, and I am hopeful it did, I want you to have this, a promise from me to you. I am not going anywhere. Cal is not going anywhere. I have found what I have been looking for, and I am not in a hurry to know when we get to have it. I will wait as long as we need to wait for Cal. And I hope you will wait with me, E." I read that note by moonlight at my mailbox. I put it in my pocket. I walked the rest of the way home under the stars. I want to tell you about the year that came after that dinner, because it did not go the way you might expect, and that is the point. We were slow. October, I came to dinner every Sunday. I fixed things around Ellery's farmhouse every Tuesday and Thursday. Cal and I built a small chicken coop extension for Rutherford, who had grown territorial. Cal decided within 3 weeks that I was, in his own private 6-year-old classification system, a good adult. That was his highest rank. He conferred it on very few people. November, Cal started asking his mother if I could be at his birthday party. Ellery said yes. I helped make a small vanilla cake with rainbow sprinkles. Cal turned 7. I gave him a small pocket flashlight I had wrapped myself. He carried it in his pocket for the next 4 months everywhere he went. December. I came to Christmas Eve dinner at her farmhouse. I brought Ezra, I brought presents, I did not stay the night. Cal was 6 going on 7, and even that would have been too much. I went home to my own farmhouse and slept alone. I did not mind. I read her Christmas note by my own fire before bed. The Christmas note said, "Bennett, I want you to know that this Christmas is the first Christmas I have not spent alone in 5 years. I am aware you drove yourself home to your own house tonight so as not to overwhelm Cal. I am aware you have done this every night for 4 months. I want you to know I have noticed. I want you to know it will be paid back. January. Ellery got the flu. I took care of Cal for 4 days, cooked him meals, walked him to the school bus, brought Ellery soup on trays she couldn't eat. Ezra slept on her bedroom floor because she said his presence made her feel less alone. February. Cal asked me one Sunday afternoon, out of the blue, "Mr. Ezra's dad, are you going to marry my mom?" I looked at Ellery across the kitchen. She had gone very still. I said, "Cal, I don't know. What do you think?" Cal thought about it. He said, "I think you should." Ellery said, "Cal, that is a very grown-up question." Cal said, "I am 7 now. I am grown up." Ellery laughed, wiped her eyes. She looked at me. I said, "Cal, if your mom said yes, and if you said yes, I would say yes." Cal said, "Then it's decided." He went back to his coloring book. Ellery stood up, walked over, sat down next to me, put her hand on top of mine on the kitchen table. She said, "Bennett Marsh, I think our 7-year-old just proposed for us." I said, "I think he did." She said, "Yes, whenever you want, yes." March. I proposed properly, in her kitchen, on a Saturday afternoon while she was folding laundry. Cal held the ring. It was a small ring. It had been my mother's. My sister had sent it to me 2 months earlier without knowing exactly why. Sisters know things. Ellery cried. Cal cried. Ezra sighed and closed his eyes because he was 13 years old, and this was too much for one dog to process. April. I moved into the farmhouse. I did not sell my own farmhouse. I kept it as a workshop and as a place I could go on quiet afternoons when I needed to write code or read. Ellery said that was smart. She said we should never be less than 200 yards apart in our own house, even after we were living together. She said, "Bennett, marriage is the promise of proximity. It is not the promise of oneness. I am not trying to become you. You are not trying to become me. We are trying to build a house we both fit in." May. We started building the small addition to her farmhouse, a room for me to work in, a back porch that connected the 2 farmhouses conceptually. I still walked the 1/4 mile most mornings to make my coffee at the old cabin and read a book, but the new room made a proper marriage more possible. June. We got married, under the maple tree in her front yard. Cal was the ring bearer. Ezra was the flower dog. My sister flew in from Charleston. Her mother drove up from Charlotte, about 25 people. I wore a suit that had been my father's. Ellery wore a soft cream dress that she said she had been saving in her closet for 6 years, without knowing why. At the reception, at the end of the night, Cal, 7.5 now, stood up and gave a toast. He said, "I am not very good at speeches. My mom said I did not have to give one, but I want to." Everybody laughed. Cal said, "When Bennett fixed our porch light, I was 6 years old. I did not know I was going to get a dad again. I did not know that was allowed. My mom told me a lot of things I had lost were not going to come back. She told me about my real dad who died before I could remember him, and she told me that was okay. She told me sometimes people just have to be family with the people they have." Cal took a breath. He was 7 years old giving a speech in front of 25 adults, and he was doing it more carefully than most adults could have done it. He said, "But then the porch light got fixed, and Ezra came, and the notes started coming, and Bennett came. And now I have a dad who fixes things, and Ezra who is my best dog, and my mom who does not cry in the shower anymore." Ellery had her face in her hands. She was crying so hard she could not lift her head. Cal raised his small glass of apple juice. He said, "To broken porch lights." The whole reception raised their glasses. Every single adult raised their glass to broken porch lights. Even Rutherford the rooster, who was in the yard, crowed once, and the whole reception laughed and cried at the same time. There is one more thing I need to tell you. Because 2 years after the wedding, 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days after Cal proposed for us in his mother's kitchen, I was cleaning out the small workshop at my old farmhouse one Saturday morning in October. I was moving the small wooden box, the one where I had kept every note. I sat down on the workshop floor with the box in my lap. I opened it. I counted them. There were 58 notes in total, 29 from her, 29 from me. Every single one we had exchanged over the 6 weeks before that first dinner, plus every note she had left on the pillow for me every year on our anniversary since. I sat on the floor for a long time reading through them. At the very bottom of the box was one note I had not put there. I did not recognize the handwriting immediately. It was not Ellery's. It was smaller, more careful. A child's handwriting, slightly older than Cal's, had been at 6. I unfolded it. It said, "Mr. Bennett, when you married my mom, I was 7. I am 9 now. Mom said I could write you a note whenever I wanted and put it in the special box in your old workshop. I have not written one yet. I am writing this one because tomorrow is your birthday and I did not know what to get you. So I wanted to say the thing that I have not said. Thank you for fixing our porch light. Thank you for coming to dinner. Thank you for not asking me to call you Dad until I asked you first, which was on my 8th birthday, and thank you for crying when I asked you. Thank you for teaching me how to change a tire and how to bake a pie crust and how to hold a screwdriver like Grandpa taught you. Thank you for being steady. That is Mom's word. She said, that is what you are. I asked her what steady means, and she said it means Bennett. So that is what it means. Steady means Bennett. Happy birthday, Dad, Cal." I sat on the workshop floor with that note for a long time. I put it back at the bottom of the box, because that is where he had put it, and I understood that Cal had wanted me to find it at the moment I was going to find it, and I did not want to move it into any of the other places. I closed the box. I carried it back down Ridge Creek Road to the farmhouse where Ellery and Cal and Ezra, 9 years old now, gray around the muzzle but still going, were waiting for me on the porch. Ellery saw the box in my hands. She saw my face. She said, "Bennett, did you find one?" I said, "You knew about the note in the box?" She said, "He asked me if he could put one in there for your birthday last summer." I told him yes. I told him you would find it when you were meant to find it. I did not tell you because he asked me not to. I said, "Ellery." She said, "I know." I sat down on the porch swing next to her. I put the box on my lap. Cal was in the yard with Ezra. Ezra was old and slow and lying in the sun. Cal was reading a book to him. Ezra was pretending to listen. That was their whole ritual now. Ellery put her head on my shoulder. She said, "Bennett, do you remember the first note I left you? The one about the porch light?" I said every word. She said, "I said I had been alone at the end of this road for a very long time." I said, "You did." She said, "You know what I did not tell you in that note." "What?" She said, "I did not tell you that when I got up that morning and I saw that porch light burning, and I saw the note that you had not left, because you were not the kind of man who takes credit for kindness. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee, and I said out loud to my empty kitchen, 'Whoever did this is my future husband.' I said it out loud, to the coffee maker, to the empty chair, to no one. I did not know who you were. I did not know your name. I just knew, in the specific way a woman knows things, in the specific quiet of her own kitchen, at 7 in the morning, that a man had fixed a broken thing in the world without needing to be thanked, and that man was my future husband." I looked at her. I said, "Ellery." She said, "It just took us 3.5 years to walk down the road and meet each other properly." I put my arm around her, kissed the top of her head, watched Cal read to Ezra in the yard. That was the whole story. Some men fix things because that is what they were trained to do. Some women write notes because that is how they have learned to reach out to a world that has not always been kind. And every once in a while, on a Wednesday evening in August, on a dirt road at the end of a quarter mile, a man with a screwdriver drives past a broken porch light one time too many, and he decides to stop. If there is a small broken thing on your neighbor's porch that has been out for months, and nobody has fixed it, I want you to consider something. They probably cannot fix it themselves, not because they do not know how, because whatever else is broken in their life is bigger than a porch light, and they are conserving strength for the bigger things. You have a screwdriver in your truck. You have a light bulb at the hardware store. You have 20 minutes on a Wednesday evening. Turn into the driveway, fix the light, drive home, and then wait for the coffee to appear on your porch. I promise you it will. If this story reached something in you, if there is a small broken thing on somebody else's porch you could fix without needing to be thanked, or if there is a small broken thing on your own porch that has been out for too long, hit that subscribe button and tell me about it in the comments below. I read every single one, and every once in a while, one of your stories becomes the next one I tell. Until then, fix the light. You have no idea who has been waiting for it.